Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael. Today I want to talk a little bit about being challenged. We've been living through a time in our country for the last couple of weeks, and really over the last couple of years, where challenge has become sort of the key word of our times. Challenging authority, mandates that seem to challenge people's freedom. This understanding that we are living in a time of everything changing so fast that it has become a challenge. And it feels an awful lot like challenge has become a bad word. Like if somebody challenges us or a situation challenges us, then we get our juice up. We're ready to fight. We're ready to prepare for battle because we don't want to be challenged anymore. But the fact is, I think that challenge is what sharpens us, makes us really prepared for things. It makes us think differently, or it helps us to really dig deep and think the same things, but with a more mature attitude and a better foundation for what we do believe. And one of the ways that I try to challenge myself every day, beyond trying to get on the elliptical and things like that, eating properly and not drinking too much coffee, for me, a challenge is to get up every morning and do my daily office. That part's not the challenge, but to read something engaging, something challenging, something that makes me go, I hadn't thought of that before, even something that I really disagree with. And so I've got hundreds of books I could choose from, and some of them have been there forever. And one of the books I'm reading right now, I usually have 4 or 5 on the go, but one of the books I'm reading right now is called Emergence Christianity: What It Is, Where It Is Going, and Why It Matters by Phyllis Tickle. And my congregations have been hearing about this the last couple of weeks, about this idea of the church changing and the era that we're in. That every 500 years there's sort of almost like a metaphorical tectonic plate shifting that changes everything in the world, that takes a while for it to happen, but it's irrevocable. It happens. And while I'm not finding this book challenging as in that I disagree with her, and there are plenty of books that I have read and have simply finished because I don't like not finishing a book. I don't know how mature that is or not, but that I read for the sake of reading it. But there are lots of books that I have read that at the end of the day I was like, I completely disagree with what they're saying. I appreciate the fact that they took the time to write the book. I'll never read it again. I will never mention it to anybody. I certainly wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But then there are books that challenge me in a new way, in that I understand what they're saying, or at least I'm beginning to comprehend what they're saying and realizing that what they're saying is a challenge in my life because it's true. It's a real thing. It's something that I'm going to have to grapple with, even if I don't want to. And isn't that one of the wonderful things about being Christian? The fact that we are challenged, and specifically maybe even Anglican, and I'm not trying to denigrate any other denomination, but one of the things I've heard over the years is that to be an Anglican means you don't check your brain at the door. You are not only encouraged but expected to listen, to read, to pray on, to meditate over, to really dive into things and ask questions. We talk about Scripture, the three-legged stool in Anglicanism: Scripture, tradition, and reason. The Scripture, of course, is the Bible, the holy words of God that we have in the form of the canon of the Bible, Old and New Testament, and depending on where you're coming from, the Apocrypha. Then there's tradition, and tradition does not mean the way we did it last week or 2 weeks ago or 5 years ago, because that's the way the church always did it. If you're Anglican, one of the things we fall into is you probably sit in the back pew, and if you've done it twice, it's a tradition. I know those are big general statements that aren't really true. However, there's a reason why they came into being. But the tradition we're talking about is more the tradition of the church. And when I say church, I'm not talking specifically about the Anglican Church. I'm talking about the history of the church, from the moment that the church was created and through the 2,000 years since, that the things that we have done as faithful communities of Christians, which have those traditions, those creeds that we use, the prayers that we use, the liturgies, the music, all of those things that come together that form the capsule that encapsulates the way that we that we be Christian, the way that that encloses or helps us to keep a form on the things that we do because we are Christian. We happen to be Anglican, but it comes from before the Anglican Church, those traditions of the church. And then, of course, reason. And that is right there, up there in your melon. Thinking about something with reason. I have been feeling very challenged lately in the last several months, but last couple of weeks in particular, about reason. What is reasonable? What is true reasoning? What does it mean to reason something with common sense? It feels like those things have kind of gotten mixed up and, turned into a fruitcake that nobody wants for Christmas. For me, reason is the rational thinking about something, figuring it out, looking at all perspectives, establishing what is real, what is true, what is false, what is fiction, what is fact, what is fiction, what is true, real, what is a lie, and being able to look at that, and then look at that, especially in the church world, through the lens of both scripture and tradition. So what does the Bible have to say about this? What is the history of the church, the way we have been a people of the people of God? What does that have to say about what I'm thinking about? And lately, the challenge I have had is the challenge to open my eyes that I might recognize where is truth lying when it makes me uncomfortable. Is there truth in something? I've had some back and forth with a few people on Facebook around the truckers and the convoy and things like that. And, vaccinations and all of the science and the government and things like that. And it keeps coming back to me that I'm a sheep. I'm following along and just listening, and I'm not challenging. I'm just paying attention to what the government or the big pharma or the powers that be want me to do. I'm following along, not asking questions. And I trust, maybe naively, in my government, and there is no government that's perfect, that I trust that they're going to hold up the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that they're not going to break the law. If they do, I am going to lean toward the idea, toward the belief, the assumption that they did not intend to. I don't believe that people intend to be bad, intend to hurt other people. I just don't go there. So if somebody has done something contrary to a law, then fix it, apologize and fix it, and then work toward never doing it again. It's like, being in the States. There's quite a few states and places where you cannot turn right on a red light. In Canada, if you can't turn right on a red light, there's usually a sign that says no right-hand turns on a red light. But in some of the states, that's just a given. It's just a law. You don't have to put up a sign saying it because you're not allowed to turn right on a red light. Well, if you're not from there, or if you've never encountered that rule before, then how would you know? And I think that for a lot of things happening anymore, so much has happened. There's so much information. There's so much expected of us to think about and to digest and to figure out that the pendulum has swung from trusting everybody to trusting no one, and believing that everybody else is out to get you or is out to get the group that you associate with. I can't do that. I can't just assume. I'm not saying people like that are paranoid, but I cannot live in a state of paranoia in which I think that just because the majority believes something, that it's automatically wrong. Because my experience in my 50 years of life is that when the majority is doing something, there is a reason why. That we're not all sheep. That we're doing makes sense. And that's why there's a majority of us doing it. And so I have been challenged a lot to think about what I'm hearing, to be critical. Not critical as in cut it down and slice it up, but critical as in thinking critically, critical thinking about what am I hearing on the news? What am I seeing on social media? What am I reading in books? What am I thinking about? And allowing it to challenge me to say, does it make sense? Up here, reason. Does it make sense? Do the arguments make sense? Is it scriptural? Is this, even if it's not something to do with the church, is there something that I know that God has said something about, or God has spoken through scripture about this topic? And then look through that. And tradition. What does the church, because that's my community. What does the church say about this, or say about a situation similar to this? And sometimes scripture and tradition don't fall into it, but common sense and reason always do. And so I have been finding myself extremely challenged lately to not just think those people are crazy, that the people who think different than me, they're nuts, but to really sit down and think, why do I believe that I'm right? If they're quoting one or two studies from one or two experts that say that 98% of the experts in the world are wrong, common sense and reason says to me, maybe that's the one that's wrong. When there are other influences out there and I'm aware of them that are swaying other people to make those decisions, and those other influences are quite open about the fact that they have an agenda, that they have a political hobby horse that they're trying to ride here. Yeah, I challenge that, and I wonder and I think, what of this? But I am learning to be challenged and to allow myself to be challenged. Not so that I will automatically change my mind, but so that at least if I maintain my opinion or my thought process or my decision making in this particular area, I know that I've done so not because I'm a sheep and follow what everyone else says, but because I am using the God-given gifts that have been given to me through scripture, through the tradition of my church community, meaning the whole Christian community, not just the Anglican Church, and the reason that God gave me as an intelligent, thinking person. So whether it's books like Emergence Christianity, or podcasts, or videos on Facebook, or the news at night, I am thinking differently. I'm allowing myself to be challenged, and I am opening myself up to thinking in a new way. If it makes sense, it has a basis in something that I believe that God is supporting, and if the traditions around me say, this is helpful. How are you being challenged these days, and how do you face challenge? Please feel free to write your comments below and help me to know that maybe I'm not the only one out there being challenged these days. Have a good day. God bless you, and I will see you again for Church at Home with Rachael.